Afternoon, fellow Plexers. This is kind of a crossover video because today I want to try and help a gentleman named Lee from the Unraid Users and Help group. He's got an Unraid question which I think is really a Plex issue and has nothing to do with Unraid. His original ripped library was named for Cody, and then when he set it up for Plex, he's got movies that are missing. And I don't know if they're actually missing from a unmatched perspective with Plex or if they've been matched incorrectly to the wrong title. So he wants something that'll identify what he actually has in Kodi versus what he actually has in Plex. And I think the easiest solution is to just fix the core issue, which most likely is poor structure and file names. So what I've done is I've taken a short video and just copied it over and over and renamed it poorly. I'm using periods instead of natural spaces. I'm not putting the movie year in parentheses. There's no folders. I've thrown an underscore in different places. So what I want to do is take a test server. Now I run my main Plex server on a little Intel 11th Gen NUC running Unraid without its own storage array. The Plex container runs on a shared cache pool Unraid and points back to my existing media on my Synology DS1520 Plus NAS, which is where I used to run my Plex Docker container. I also have a older 1019 Plus Synology NAS, which has just been set up to be a backup unit to the first one. I just wiped DSM-6 on it and installed 7.2. And I have a hyper backup running as we speak, backing up my whole newer NAS to the older one, which will eventually go off site. So that's my setup. I've installed a Plex server container on the older NAS, and that's the one we're going to access. So I've got my typical media structure. I have a shared folder which is named Media PD on this older NAS. I have library sort folders, so in the music or in the movie library sort folder, I have the different library folders that server can point to. So right here I have my test library. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to point this server to that. So I will create a library. I'll name it -test. Go into my movie library sort folder and I will point at that. And then I always go into the advanced settings and I want the automatic collection size set for 2. And normally I uncheck local assets because I name and structure my media so well it doesn't need to look there for anything. But we'll leave that checked for now. Alright, so that movie library is scanning. Let's go to the library view. And all these videos are actually just a short 5-second video that I've recorded. Except for this one. This one is a unlisted movie from my regular Plex library. I wanted at least one movie that doesn't match up with either the entries at IMDb or the movie database. So even with the poor file names, Plex matched some of them up. It got 3 of them out of the 8. So first off for Lee, if in Kodi he can get a total movie count, or just by pointing his computer's file manager at that media, you can just select all and you'll see the number of movie folders you have if everything's in a movie folder, or get that total from Kodi. So the first thing I do is from the library tab is let's see how many movies Plex says you have. Does it match the number of movies that Kodi says, or a tabulation of file manager would tell you you have. If it doesn't match, the first thing is go to all and look for unmatched movies. Now you could fix match them, but I think fix match is a failure. I think it's always a failure. And why that is if something ever happens to your server catastrophically, but you can restore your media from a backup, or the media was unaffected because it's on a different device. If you have, say, a 5,000 movie library and you had to use fix match on 10% of those, well, when you scan that library all at once, you won't know what 10% need fix match run on it if those movies don't show up under the unmatched. If they instead show up as a duplicate of something you do have, or as the wrong movie of a movie you didn't already have, you're kind of stuck. You don't know which movies matched correctly and which ones didn't unless you view each one. So that's where I'd start. I'd find out how many movies I'm supposed to have, I'd see what Plex says there are, and then I'd look under unmatched and duplicates. Unmatched are easy ones. You simply fix the file names and they'll scan properly, or you use fix match. Duplicates are a little harder because now you can go in and you can edit the movie. So let's do it this way. Any duplicate you find, you can hit the pencil icon, go into info, and you'll see the correct movie along with the one that scanned properly. And then you can split them apart. You'd go to the three dots and there'd be an option to split apart, and then you could fix match the one that didn't match up correctly. I'm going to suggest that's way too much work, and there's a better solution by using Filebot to rename things properly. So let's get Plex out of the way. And let's go back to my files. So what I've got set up is I have a movie-fix folder. These are how these files should be named. So let me just get rid of them for now. Or maybe I already did and just didn't rescan. So all my videos are cold. I don't prep anything. I just come up with an idea, write a few notes down, and I'm off to the races. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just take a couple movies. Now, I know this one didn't scan correctly. And let me see. VHS silent run, and I think U57 scanned correctly. So let me take 48 Hours and this Hot Night one. And I'm just going to move them completely. And you can actually use a temporary directory to do what I'm doing next. I'm just going to a finalized directory. So I'm going to paste them in here. And then I'm going to right click and open that folder with Filebot. And if you want to use Plex's own movie expression, you could just do it manually, but I want to add the source ID from TMDB. And if I hold down my Shift button, and only because I have other expressions installed, and click Presets, I'll see Organized Movies for Plex, and that's what I'll pick. Now this will create the folder structure with the source ID in it, but not in the file name. This will also move the media to a folder named Media in a subfolder named Movies. So you would have to have that set up beforehand. If I try to rename that, I get an error because those folders don't exist on my NAS. But if you really want to use Filebot, you could just create this structure, and as you rename things, it'll get automatically moved to it. So the most important part about Filebot is to only do 10, 20 movies at a time, because you really have to scan down. You'll recognize what movie it's supposed to be based on your file name, but you want to make sure that Filebot connects to the right entry at the movie database, so you just want to check each side of the Filebot panes to make sure you got the right one. I'm going to use my custom expression that creates structure where the media is, and as you can see, it's doing it right in that movie-libraries folder and in the movie-fix subfolder. And my expression adds the source ID to both the folder and the file name, while it also adds media characteristics in brackets. So let me rename that, and we'll go look at it where we can see it better. Well, only it didn't rename it. It didn't create the folder structure, so let's do that again. Maybe I clicked into the wrong expression. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm not recognizing this. I usually use elementary OS. I'm in this Fedora only because Filebot is larger. I'm looking at this the wrong way. It created the folder and the file names. So my expression adds media characteristics. And while this isn't 100% legal, it works. In a TV show library, Plex instructs us to put anything we don't want scanned into brackets. Normally, my old expression would have not had the brackets. And this official space would have been a good separator to use from Plex's movie naming documents, all three of them, or I could have used a plain period to separate that. You can't use a period as a replacement for a natural space, and you can't use an underscore. But a period or a space separates different parts of the file name. My assumption is that eventually Plex will add the bracketed rule to a movie library, but even though they haven't, it doesn't interfere because it comes after this space. So I like the looks of that, and that's how my media is named. All right, so now let's go into Plex. So if I rescan this, the missing movies will just disappear. So before I do that, let's edit this library. And let's add the new folder. We won't remove this, we'll just add the one we're moving good media to. Alright, so we'll add the fixed one. And saving changes will cause Plex to rescan. And if you have existing collections set up, it won't ruin that as it rescans it from the right file name. So now we've got a few movies all found properly, but they're not all properly named yet. So let's finish this job. We'll go to our test one. And now we'll remove them. And we'll pop them in here. Now again, you could use a third test folder to rename it to then move here. I'm not doing that, I'm just doing it this way. So I can again open with Filebot. And Filebot's not going to change anything that's been named properly. And this is kind of good to show too. So I'll use my own custom expression again. So this one, this movie from 2015 is an unlisted movie. It's just a performance that I have. It's in my Christmas collection. There is an entry for an earlier performance from 2011, but that's not it, so I'll skip it. So now Filebot is asking if this movie, which I purposely renamed Funny by spelling out 500 instead of using 500 in parentheses, it's asking me if that's the correct movie, and it is. Okay, so anything with a green dot means it's not going to be renamed. So we have to check things on the left side and the right side. So 500 Days is correct, Run Silent, Run Deep is correct, U571 is correct, and VHS is correct. So Filebot discovered it properly based on my shoddy file names and will not rename this movie. So if I click rename, it left the one. We'll close that out. We'll go in and now everything's all set. So if I was going to fix this one up, I would adjust it so it doesn't look like I was on crack. And I might do something like this. If I'm going to have multiple ones, I might create a sort folder just for these oddly movies that aren't in a database. I might do this. Just so anything that didn't have an entry at IMDb or the movie database kind of stuck together. Plex isn't going to find it anyway, so I would just segregate them someplace you can find it easy. Alright, so now we'll rescan Plex. I think it all automatically rescanned while I was speaking, and it's found everything correctly, including this very hard to scan movie. This movie won't scan. From past experience and another Filebot video I've done, I proved that this movie will not match up with Plex without the source ID, even during a fixed match. It's very difficult. You got to manually put the source ID into fixed match to have this movie scan. But with the source ID added, it scans fine. So I don't know why. Oh, it's because of all this. So I'm just going to copy that information, go in and edit this. Give it a date. Now I might know when this performance happened, and I might be able to give it a true date. And you can add any summary you want. And then you can edit in the artwork. So that's for an unmatched one. But this is really the solution. And it really can be painstaking if you have a large library. But it's the real true solution to get Plex to match things up properly. And once you start using Filebot to rename things with a source ID quickly, that's a good step to do just going forward. But you really need to backtrack too. And you don't have to start fresh. You can just, one day a week, spend an hour, and you'll be surprised once you get practice at it, how many movies you can complete in an hour. And again, I do have to stress, this is the end part of the video, I do have to stress, when you're going to rename, let me use my, we do IMDb structure. I have one for that too. So this is going to use the IMDb source number instead. When you do this, you really have to take the time to compare the original file name with what Filebot wants to rename it as. Because if the file names were so bad that Plex couldn't discover it, Filebot might suggest the same wrong movie as your Plex server did originally. But Plex has gotten better over the years too. It finds things easier with goofed up file names. So anyway, Lee, I hope this is helpful, and thanks for watching, and that's my solution. It's not an Unraid issue. It's not an Unraid fix. This is a Plex issue. It's a core Plex issue that requires a fix of your folder and file name structures. Let me know if you have any questions.